Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today's guest is a fifth-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a three-time world champion, also an MMA fighter. He has also published a book and then does professional speaking and is a certified life coach. Within the industry, he is a Nova União representative, and he created the largest BJJ tournament in Arizona. He is a busy man, Mr. Gustavo Dantas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Caleb. How are you, man? How are you during this craziness?
I'm learning new skills. I'm educating myself and just trying to create a new way to connect with my students, which, you've kind of been on the leading edge of that because, you have a podcast, you have some online products and interactive stuff that you had for years. So do you feel like that this situation was more time for you to develop those products, or was it kind of a panic to get more available? How did it disrupt with you?
For sure, we want to try to refine things, and definitely it's a great tool. But at the end of the day, jiu-jitsu, it's very hard for people. Most people at home, they don't have mats or even someone to practice on. So right now, personally, for my students, I've been doing some self-defense classes. And the way I do it is just to inspire to bring their spouse to do the class with them. Super basic, so they don't need a really mat. They can do just on a carpet. So that's what we've been doing like twice a week. Well, we do have some kids class, women's online, but this one is interesting because give the chance of the couple to work together. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's a very creative idea to kind of help people connect. Because I'm sure everybody that does jiu-jitsu, their spouses kind of have no, you're not putting me in another triangle choke in the living room. So maybe give them something a little bit different to focus on. I think that's a real, excuse me, that's a real creative approach there. Yeah. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your history. You have an amazing background and story that you've had an opportunity to tell over the years, but there were some specific questions I wanted to ask. And really the first one I wanted to lead with was, when you were a kid, what was the first introduction to martial arts? I don't know if it was friends training, a movie, a book, magazine, but do you remember the first introduction you had to doing some type of martial arts?
Yeah, I did karate for about a month, and I didn't like back then. I was probably 9 or so. And back then in Brazil, it's just one of those things that, hey, they opened it was a karate program inside a gym, fitness gym. And it's not like the parents come here and sign the waivers. We're talking Brazil in the 80s. You just come in, hop in class.
Yeah.
So I did it for a month. I didn't like, and then they started a judo program, and I really liked that. And I did for, I don't know how long, maybe somewhere between 6 months and a year. And then I started having bad grades in school, and my mom said, okay, enough. And so I stopped training, which I really enjoyed. And only when I was about 14 to 15, that's when my grades start to get a little better. Well, I failed 7th grade, so I was doing for the second time. So that means by the second time, you're like, okay, I think if I don't get my grades straight right now, I think that's a problem. So anyway, after that, that was one of the lessons that came as a blessing, doing my 7th grade all over again, just because I understood that, okay, I have to spend more time studying, can play around. So that was good. And that's when I started jiu-jitsu. My brother started. And one thing that I want to mention too, my dad trains jiu-jitsu back in like in the 70s for a little bit, not much, but I think he trained some. And I remember I was 4, my brother was 8, and I don't have memories because but he used to show him some jiu-jitsu, and then my brother used to say like, well, when I start driving, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. And then since the younger brother said like, wow, I'm going to do it too. So I didn't even know what was it, but as soon as it started, couple months later, I wanted to get back to judo, and he said like, man, try jiu-jitsu. And basically that was it. And that was in 1989, and been doing since.
Yeah, so it was basically kind of like a family affair that you were raised up with, that idea. What was the difference that you felt whenever you started doing the jiu-jitsu versus the judo? Like, did it affect you differently? Did you enjoy it differently? Or was it kind of just you love to train and this was just a different way to train?
When I look back, I just wanted to do some activity. My mom couldn't really afford sports and stuff like that, extracurricular activities. So I was always trying to do something. It just happened. It was jujitsu, but being honest, I think whatever I really had a chance to put a time to, I would probably get involved because I was craving so bad, like activity as a child. And I got lucky that jiu-jitsu came in it, and I really like judo. I like the grappling, and I definitely like the fact that you could keep going on the ground. It was not just with the takedown, could go longer on the ground, and I found that fascinating. And yeah, so when I took my first class, man, I'm really enjoying. By 16, I already had in my mind that I knew what I want to do for a living.
So how long were you doing jujitsu before you turned 16 and found and decided that this was going to be your passion? This is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I was probably like, if I look right now, somewhere between 16 and 17, because by the time I did my first tournament, and I did awful, by the way, but that was, for me, it was, I don't know, that was a moment, it was an important moment of a decision in my life that I decided, I really want to do this, and I just need to find the right place, because I was not in the right place back then. But I
Yeah.
noticed, I want to do more. And yeah, I think probably somewhere between 16 and 17, I just wanted to do something that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Never really thought that much of like the money aspect. It was just like I kind of want to do this. And resistance from, you can imagine, resistance from parents to be like, come on, you're not gonna make any money with this.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like stuck with my guns, just saying, yeah, no one's talking about money here. I'm talking about doing something that I like. And with time, she understood and everything. But yeah, there was an interesting journey though.
So when you were 16, 17 and you made this decision, what did you envision was the victory? Like what did accomplishing your goal look like at that age? Was it, national champion? Was it world champion? Was it trial? Like what was your picture in your mind at that age of this is what I want to achieve and this is what it would look like?
Now, it's an interesting question because when I started, there's no such a thing as even Brazilian national championship. There's no world championship. There's nothing like that. So I really I really like the idea of being a teacher and having a school one day. And I feel that that's what was driving me, of having a school and having a team. So the competition was something that I always wanted to participate in competitions. So again, just happened that it was jiu-jitsu, but whatever I could try to sign up for competition, I did. But the idea was to have a school. I was just one day just watching the teacher, and then look, man, let me get this straight. So there's a job out there that you can do jiu-jitsu anytime you want, and you get paid for it. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, no, I think I'm going to give it a try to that. And then, yeah, just all my effort as a teenager. And I was not very good in the beginning, so that was rough. Um, but my main goal, and then eventually more tournaments starts to show up and get more involved. And then next thing, yeah, I started thinking about or a title, whatever. But at the end of the day, my main goal was to have an academy, and competing was a nice bonus, for sure. And so I was able to win a few things here and there, but the main thing was that to have an academy.
It's interesting because basically your martial arts journey it came from a place of wanting to have contribution instead of recognition. And when you look at what you've accomplished all these years later, you're still running, the same plan because, like what you do with the BJJ Mental Coach to help competitors and inspire them to grow, and just all the work you've done for the No Vinyao organization and then the grappling tournament, your academy, just helping other people be successful or give them a platform to experience what you've experienced through jiu-jitsu. It's interesting that your start came from that same desire to, you know, be a teacher and have an academy and grow the team. At what point did it become more competition focused, where it was, okay, I need to work harder. I need to, you know, win this tournament. I need to keep pushing that competitive circuit.
I think it was my first competition, my first experience. So just kind of share real quick here the experience. So I used to train in a gym. It was fitness gym that had a class twice a week. Very small, and the teachers, it was kind of like, I kind of have a jujitsu program because he was the owner of the gym, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'll have the space here, I'll teach." So he, looking back, he just didn't want to be there, and but anyway, I he had him. It was more like a self-defense program, and it wasn't even that good, to be honest, looking back. And I used to bug him for like I did for like 2 years, ask him that I wanted to compete. I wanted to compete, and back then there's not late 80s and early 90s. There's not much going on back then, you know, in the scene, but they did have tournaments, and then I bugged him so much that one day he said, "I'm going to make in-house tournament." So, okay, finally, I want to get to compete. You know, I've been bugging this dude for 2 years. So he invited like 4 schools or whatever around the neighborhood. And man, I did awful. I mean, I realized how bad it was, you know, and I was already wearing a blue belt. And I remember, like as today, just going home and asking my mom, if something's wrong. I do everything this guy tell me to do. I don't miss a class, and this is the best I can do. Just get murdered in 2 matches. And I feel at that moment, and here's the thing, there's one of the quotes that I like from Tony Robbins that said, "It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped." And moments like that you create an expectation and like, yeah, I'm going to compete. So telling all my friends, I'm all excited that I'm going to. So I wasn't even anxious, or I think a lot of people can maybe resonate with this. The first tournament, especially if you're young, you not even know what to expect. You're so naive. And I just I just didn't know what to expect. I was excited, and next thing I was like, "Oh wow, I'm really bad at this," you know. So it's either, so that was the moment of decision, that it's either I stop, I don't want to mess with this anymore, or I want to prove to myself that I can do better than this. And that was a moment that like I want to do more. And I told my mom, "Hey, because she needed to approve, because that was the only school in my area. I need to go a little bit further away. Now commute is a problem. I need to take a bus, so there'll be more expenses, you know." And I really begged her for, you know, like I really have to. And so she supported me with the idea, you know. And then I started to get involved with training more. And of course, when I look back, being very honest, but I mean, I was a teenager, you know. Of course I have the idea of being a teacher and everything, but at the same time, as a teenager, man, you fighting for your self-esteem, you know what I mean? I want to win. I want to show my friends that I won and I have this medal, you know what I mean? And when I start losing a lot, next thing, kids that didn't train say like, "Man, you lose all the time, you know, have you won a match?" You'd be like giving you a hard time. So that in a way start putting me even more pressure, because now it'd be like, I'm going to show them, which means I would go to a tournament with a lot of anxiety and muscle tension. I end up playing not to lose instead of playing to win, because I'm so concerned of what others going to think about me if I don't meet their expectations, so forth. So this is kind of like the root of understanding all my all the concepts of the BJJ Mental Coach. I think that was the root of me starting to have a clue of what was holding me back. And back then, right away, my self-esteem and the need of like have to look good for my peers, for the other kids and stuff. And then of course the vision evolved to, of course, an adult. And then yes, it's not so much about the outcome anymore. It's about the journey. It's about what I'm going to be providing to people. But that's part of I wish I can say that, yes, since the beginning I was like that. No, there's no way, you know. But it's just part of the process, part of the journey.
Absolutely. You know, especially when you're younger, um, that proving them wrong or showing them your value, a lot of people in the martial arts industry and different styles, they kind of got that start, you know, because they
Yeah.
had something to prove and it drove them. And it just, a lot of times that's a part of the process in the beginning, but then when you start understanding that internal versus external motivation, that the external can get you started and like, I'm going to show them, but until it shifts to that internal drive, you know, people do really struggle performing well or consistently because they're trying to measure their self-worth by these external factors, and that is extremely volatile that you have no
Yeah.
control over. That usually ends up, even when you are victorious, feels a little lackluster because you were chasing the gold and the medal so aggressively, and then you got it, and then you still feel a little empty, which, you know, is dangerous for individuals because we're just not wired for that. And so when do you think in your journey it transitioned to that internal focus, to where it came from your drive to be successful, to perform at a high level, and you weren't doing it for everyone else? I mean, because there's always a degree of that exists, but it became to where it was more of your internal goals than the external.
Yeah, and this is a great question. This comes from basically like the end of the 2000s. So this is not like when I was young. This is definitely being older. That's when the emotional maturity starts to develop more. And around 2008, 2009, I started to get involved with studying a little bit of personal development. I started more in 2010, but eight, that was when I started to like being curious about books and stuff, like, oh, let me read this book here. And the next thing I'm like, huh. So I was slow, but then 2010, that's when I really got involved with it because I went through a roller coaster of emotions, let's put this way, in my jiu-jitsu career, from having zero confidence for taking like 6 tournaments to win a match, and to eventually do well, raise my confidence to kind of peak, and then move to the US, and then kind of like go all the way down, just because now I'm guessing, like, man, I don't have the same training partners I had, that kind of stuff, personal problems. So I went kind of down, and then I decided, man, I need to get back to competing again. I did. I took probably like a good like 4 years off and from competing. When I got back, I felt that I was just too anxious, you know, when I was competing. Not necessarily that the results are not coming. It was like here and there, I win some stuff here, lose here. But it's just didn't feel right. And I went to a competition in 2010. I went to compete at the Masters. It used to be the International Masters. Now it's the Master Worlds, but the International Masters in Rio in 2010. And I ended up winning, and I came back to the US, and I went to compete at the 2 or 3 weeks after I went to compete at the Vegas Open, and I felt like super anxious. It was just one match, but I felt like I was, it's like when you're in a paper, you're expected to beat someone, and then now next thing you pressure yourself to be like, man, you know, I have accomplished more this guy, or I'm more experienced or whatever. And that brought a lot of unnecessary anxiety. And I won, but score a lot of points, but I didn't like the way I felt. You know, I won because uh, like I feel that I was better technically than him, but maybe if it was someone with my level technically, could have been a different outcome, just because of like how my mindset was. I just didn't like. But anyway, and then I competed the open class and I felt great. You know, so uh, I just found, man, something is off, something's wrong, because it doesn't make any sense. I go to one tournament, one division, I can do well, the other one I don't do, or feel well, not about winning, but feeling. So I said, you know, I need to investigate this. And I remember in Vegas, I was still, that night, I just went to Google and started to Google mental preparation for jiu-jitsu, and I couldn't find anything. There's nothing like that. And then I just kept digging, and I found like a book with a CD for like mental preparation for different sports and stuff. And I said, like, man, that's something. That was like $100 investment. And that $100 investment, man, opened my eyes in such a great way, just looking to assess and filling out an assessment and asking some of like the hard questions, do you have the fear of disappointing others? I'm like, yeah. Do you value your self-esteem based on results? And, if you feel good, or like, yeah. Next thing, I'm like, oh my God, I'm answering yes to everything. I'm a mess. and and then I started to really work on the material, start to read more books, and then I started testing, start competing more, and trying to test drive everything that I was learning. I did it for about 2 years, and then I finally decided to share with my students because I started noticing. I guarantee that you and everyone that is listening, someone at the school that man trains incredibly, but when he gets to the competition, doesn't perform the same. And I started noticing more that after I started studying, I started to become more aware of that. Of like, man, this guy does great. He got incredible conditioning. How can he be guessing out in the first round? It doesn't make sense. And I started talking to some people, started noticing the results. And I said, man, there's no way that I can sit and have a personal talk with everyone. So I announced a group class like on Saturday. Say, hey, we're gonna this weekend I'm gonna teach a class about mental coaching. I'm just gonna share some of the stuff that I've been through. By that point, I already had finished my mental coaching certification, which, by the way, I didn't do to become a professional. I was just trying to whatever source I could find to help to take care of my own issues. That was the only thing I was really trying to do. And man, I did a class and 40 people showed up and it was awesome. I'm like, wow, you always think you're the only one to have the problems. And then we talk about it and I kept doing a few more. And then I decided to open up to the Arizona community. And I did my first professional speaking engagement. It was awesome in a hotel. And from there I said, man, I don't really want to be traveling and teaching seminars every weekend or whatever. And I want to be able to get this message across to people. So I started to create some products online. And right now, all the products at the BJJ Mental Coach website, all the products there, the digital products, all the money goes to the nonprofit organization Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. And then I would love to talk a little bit more about this organization as well. And that's where we at right now with we just have the products there. Whoever wants to learn more about mental preparation, they can go there, learn, and at the same time help a cause on the same time.
Man, that's awesome that, it's grown into a higher purpose, like into the nonprofit. Um, what inspired you to go that direction? Like, was it just that growth as an individual where you kind of discovered some things about yourself and you were like, other people need to know this, and then that kind of got the philanthropy idea going? Like, how did this nonprofit kind of spark?
Since I lived in Brazil, I had this idea like, man, I would love to have some type of social project and help out in our jiu-jitsu social project. But I knew that it would be something challenging for me to run, to have a facility, to do all that. So I always helped out here and there. And then 2010, that's when I co-founded the nonprofit organization to help social projects in Brazil, US. In US, you don't have as many. And I just I believe in jiu-jitsu. I believe that jiu-jitsu is an incredible personal development tool. And I think competition, it's a great tool as well. So one thing that I like to say is that, yeah, you don't need, and this is a fact, you don't need competition to take advantage of the benefits of this personal development tool called jiu-jitsu. You don't. Just from training, you become more confident. You will feel comfortable in uncomfortable situations. You don't panic. It's going to develop your emotional resilience, all that kind of stuff that we already know, besides learning how to defend yourself and everything. Now, if you want to amplify the power of this tool, competition is a great way, just because everything that I just said is just multiplied by 10 or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just, you don't have to, but whoever wants to, it's a great option. So in a lot of those projects, of course, they offer, number one, to get kids out of the street and the kind of stuff. And the competition, it's a great tool for them for their personal growth, and get them to travel, to go to different places. And a lot of guys, not necessarily they have to make a living out of jiu-jitsu, but a lot of them end up making because they don't have anything left. That's all they have, the jiu-jitsu. So as I got older, I just felt the need to help more and more some of those projects. And everything, I believe that everyone have a life purpose. Maybe right now, maybe someone who listen right now and haven't found yet, and that's okay, but if you dig in and develop and then do a deep soul searching, I believe that you will find your purpose. And I felt that years ago, I don't know when, maybe 2013 or so, that's when I kind of figured out mine, which is everything related to inspire, impact, and improve people's lives with whatever that is. And jiu-jitsu come as a tool for that. So basically everything that I do in my life, if it's not in alignment with these three words, I don't mess with it. So I have my academy, which the goal is to inspire, impact, and improve. Competitions is to inspire, impact, and improve. Competition, as I mentioned, incredible tool. It's amazing, how much you can learn. Yeah, I'm not even talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about personal growth. And the BJJ Mental Coach is the same, to inspire, impact, improve. The podcast in English, in Portuguese, the nonprofit organization. So coaching, high performance coaching. So if it's not in alignment with what I believe, regardless of the money, I just don't mess with it. It doesn't really attract me. It's not gonna, like, even me, of course, I'm a businessman and I run my academy, but me having 2,000 competitive students gonna make me happier? It's not gonna make me happier. It's cool. It's great. I mean, I'll be serving more people and possibly make much more money, but it doesn't is not really my motivation. It doesn't really inspire that much. I think in moments did. I think more moments when your ego is like pushing you, but now it's different. And it's important too that you talk about the internal and the external motivation, or the intrinsic and extrinsic. And it's about finding a balance. You don't want to go too far in the spectrum to just outcome, and then you don't have any fulfillment. But at the same time, you go 100% fulfillment. Now it might be a hippie end up living, because you can't afford anything, so you need to find that balance, and it takes time,
And it's ironic you say that, because I've been talking to several jiu-jitsu athletes and other martial artists, and the number of times that I hear those guys talk about, even from technique to excuse me, life off the mats, the balance part, be in the middle, like not too much, but not too little. Like, and they always attribute it to like surfing, skiing, skateboarding, like that moment of finding the balance point, finding the wave, like just, there's so many analogies that people talk about that come out of the martial arts industry. Exactly like what you're saying is you have to balance that internal and external drive for you to kind of optimally perform, which brings me back to the question of, when you decided to move to the United States, where was that drive from? Like, how was that experience? Was it the fear? Was it the opportunity? Was it panic? People believing in you? Like, what were all the things going on for that transition?
I felt that one of the things that maybe a pattern that I noticed in my life, I always try to look ahead at like how this is going to look like in 5 to 10 years. I don't know. I always look into that. And I started jiu-jitsu in a moment that was not very popular, and the early 90s is starting to get a little more momentum in Brazil. And I figured out I started teaching in 1995, but I just noticed that I'm like, man, there's schools popping up every corner. You know what I mean? I knew there was like so many in my neighborhood. It was like low middle class, so it wasn't like that great, like area of money and stuff. So I knew that at some point, I didn't think that I was gonna move out of the country. I wasn't opposed to, but I just didn't have any contact or anything. But I just knew that at some point I was gonna leave Rio, and I thought I was gonna go to start jujitsu in a new city where there's nothing going on. So that was kind of what I thought. And I went to college for physical education because in Brazil, for you to have a gym, you need to be in the field and be able to be a teacher. You need to have this 4-year degree and stuff. So they're very strict with that. And as far as like a fitness gym, because the idea that I have for academy wasn't like I'm open a jujitsu academy. Man, you count in like maybe two hands how many you're gonna see it in Rio, because usually it's a gym and they have a program, they have a room dedicated to that. It's very hard. And I knew that this was going to happen at some point. Everything just happened around the perfect timing because I was graduating from college and I was just feeling a need of exploring. I was just really feeling that, like, man, and I don't know. I just believe a lot in the universe conspiring in your favor when you start taking actions uh, for things. And basically, an opportunity it came up. I just met someone, and then eventually this opportunity to come to the US showed up. And so one of the things I always like to share with people quotes, I think everyone, what is a quote that you like if it comes to the top of your head? Like everyone
Oh man,
has like some of the
success leaves
quotes.
clues. Success
Hmm.
leaves clues. That's like my go-to.
Here we go. And I feel like everyone to a certain degree have a quote that you do your best to live in congruence with it. You know what I mean? Like I said, if you say let's success leave clues, that means if you believe, most likely you taking a look at the successful people, success patterns, be like, wait, let me take a look because you believe in that quote. And one of my favorite quotes, I feel that it's like the theme of my life. I was very blessed to, I don't know if these are the exact words, but I remember learning something like that. Is if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. So when you stop to think about you, Caleb, and everyone who's listening to this, if you think about some of the biggest challenge that you've ever accepted in your life, most likely there was a huge opportunity that presented itself. Even though sometimes people say like, oh, but it was an undesired outcome that happened. You know what I mean? Oh, no problem. It's still a huge opportunity for growth. And that's where people miss that. The opportunity, maybe because sometimes people try a huge goal, don't accomplish, and they think they fail. Like, man, just look at the big picture. It somewhere there's an incredible opportunity for growth. And a lot of the times the opportunity presents itself, comes and presents itself as another challenge. And I felt that that's what kind of happened with me, and I feel that this is in everyone's life, because those again, those decisions, they're going to really shape your destiny. You start making decisions with that. Well, you just made a decision to get this huge challenge, and then next thing, like, oh, there's another opportunity because I took this challenge. Then it just keeps going. So I had an opportunity when I was 17 to start studying English. I was very curious about learning about music, what people say. I wanted to know movies and stuff. So I mentioned this to my mom. And at that point, my mom was working as a secretary. And all the secretaries, they always hook each other up. It's like a big family, different companies, but they always like helping each other out. So they're always exchanging favors. So she contacted a friend of hers that worked at English, like a second language school, and mentioned that I wanted to study. And she's like, okay, let me see what I can do. So she was able to get me a full scholarship to go twice a week, 3 hours per week for 7 years, the full course. And so I just needed to keep the my grades, and then I'll keep it. And I was like, okay. So I started doing, and I remember about 4 years in, I was already kind of sick of it. I'm like, man. And then my mom, and then my mom was saying, um, well, one day you're gonna need this English or whatever, you know. So kept going, and man, in 1997, I was training for the Worlds, and I met an American when training at the Pioneers of my school. And I remember that I already had like maybe 5 years of English, but I never tried. I never opened really my mouth in class. So just go in quiet, just leave quiet. And, you know, after class, when people was just kind of hanging out and talking after class, and I saw this guy in the corner uh, just stretching by himself. And I felt really bad for the guy. I was like, man, that would suck. You go to another country and you don't speak the language. People are laughing and talking, you know. And I was being very quiet and reserved in a way, but I just felt bad. I was like, man, I'm gonna go there. So I made a decision to go there to talk with that guy. That decision really shaped my destiny. As simple as just going over a silly fear of what if I'm embarrassed myself speaking in English, you know? So just stupid when you look back.
Do
But
you remember who it was?
yeah, it's Steve Da Silva.
Oh, that's
Still a
awesome.
friend of mine. He used to train with John Lewis in Vegas,
Yeah.
and still to this day we have contact and everything. So I went to talk with him, and he said like, "Man, you speak English?" And I was like, "Well, so slow." So I started talking with him, and I started to understand. My English ended up being better than I actually expected. People start coming like, "Oh wow, Gustavo," asked me to translate. I didn't know you speak English. I said I didn't know either. I'm just kind of finding out right now. And we became friends and took him out around town and stuff. So in 1998 he came, he went back to the same to train and compete, and then he issued me a big challenge. He said, hey, there will be a tournament in California in about 6 weeks. I live in and this was back in like the end. It was like the end of July, because back the worlds back then were around the time. So I live in Vegas. We can stay in my house. We can drive to California. You can crash with me there and stuff. And what do you think? And Caleb, the only thing that came into my mind was the image of me in the United States. That's the first thing that came into my mind, just like boom. And I told her, I'm going. And they're like, really? I was like, I'm going. And they're like, he said, I know that you need a visa to go, and it's kind of complicated, that stuff. Do you have a visa? I said, I don't even have a passport. I don't have the money, but I'm going. And this was like 6 weeks. And and this is the point that is very interesting, because again, a big challenge present itself. I'm saying like, hey, would you like to go? So now you have two options. Either you say, you know what, 6 weeks away, too close. I don't have a passport. Of course, I don't have a visa. I don't have the money. Maybe next time I can prepare myself better. There we go. That's an option. The other option is you ask yourself, what is the worst case scenario? So what is my worst case scenario was like, okay, um, maybe I apply for my visa and the embassy denies, and then I don't get, and it's expensive, the visa, and I'm like, and I don't get this money back. Okay. But on the positive side, I do want to travel internationally to compete. And at least that's progress. At least I'm gonna have my passport. And that was it. And then basically I had 5 weeks to make this happen. Because 1 week I was like the week before the traveling, and I had 5 weeks. I end up, long story, but I was able to get my passport, get my visa, which was a story itself just to get that. I got the money. I didn't spend any money to travel, and end up doing well with the competition. Made a lot of contacts. Stay there for 10 days, and I figured out, man, I can easily live here in the United States. As far as like, I loved just everything about it. And basically 4 months later, I was graduating college, getting my black belt, and graduating the English school. So everything was right in there. And I decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go, even though I didn't come with any job guarantee or anything like that. You know what I mean? I just came like, I'm going, let's see what happened. And I knew that there was another huge challenge that I was taking, that I knew that was going to generate some big opportunity. And that's what it did. And I feel that everyone that is listening, especially right now during this time that you're home a lot, and it sucks, but if you really dig in deep, you will find some big challenge that you can accept right now, right at this moment, that maybe is not going to something that's going to give you money or whatever next month, but it can really kind of possibly even uh, shape your destiny, depending of like where, what are you, what are you doing. So I feel that this is a time for people to really accept some, if it's small challenge, big challenge, or whatever, but there's no doubt that by the time this is over, a huge opportunity is going to present itself from the challenge that you accepted. Now it's up to you what that is. You know what I mean? It's just something that you feel like it. And most likely it's going to be something that you feel like doing. Plus is giving some extra anxiety when you think about it. It's like, oh boy, because you know that it's meaningful. And that's a trigger that I figured out for me. And I suggest to everyone, every time you have an idea, followed by anxiety, there's a really good chance to be a good one. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
if you didn't bring in anxiety, probably it may not be as meaningful. You know what I mean? It's gonna bring a little something or a lot. So that's, if there's anything that everyone is listening that you can take away from this interview, is that if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. And then when you accept this challenge, remember that it's in the moments of decisions that your destiny is shaped.
And that brings up a good point of when people have these big challenges, which leads me to another question of what is the difference of people converting big challenges into big opportunities versus not? Because there's some people that run into big challenges and they just can't seem to find the opportunity in it. So if you were going to advise or outline, how do you convert challenges, tragedy, fear, anxiety, what you perceive as negative circumstances into an opportunity regardless?
I feel that it's going to come to your foundation, your mindset. By the way, I'm going to show a book here on the camera, so people watching on YouTube be able to see it. People watching on, listening on podcasts. The book is called Mindset by Carol Dweck, The New Psychology of Success. So this is a great book that talks about the difference between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And the fixed mindset, very often people who believe, and here's the thing too, sometimes in a specific arena of your life you have more of a growth mindset, but maybe in a different one you have a more fixed. So it's not like you either one or the others. I think it depends on some of the arenas. And I feel that the fixed mindset, that's the mindset that trusts so much in like in a talent, in a way, saying like, oh, I'm not good at this. No, either you're born with this or not. That kind of like fix that it is what it is. Sometimes, like, oh, I'm not good at whatever. I'm not good in history. I'm like, well, you predisposed to be bad in history. If you study every day, there's no way you're going to improve that. And that goes to everything. That goes to jiu-jitsu. Oh man, I'm a great guard player. I'm not a good top player. So that means that there's no way that you can improve your top. So that's the kind of negative vibe that the fixed mindset have. And the growth mindset, they believe that everything you do with consistency for a long time, you can improve. So if someone has the tendency to have more of a fixed mindset and accept a big challenge, and that's one of the traits of the fixed mindset people, is the ability to not to stick with things when things get rough. and try for a little bit, man, I'm trying, that's not good, man, I don't think it's for me, you know what I mean? And then kind of like go and try something else. And then while the fixed mindset, that's you're in that journey of like, I can get better, I can improve. And when you say improve, I always mention it's super important too. Like maybe you put, let's say, whatever, we can say jujitsu, you're playing your guard, and then you're playing whatever butterfly guard, that's a topic you want to improve. Right now your level from 0 to 100 is 20. Oh, my butterfly guard is horrible. Okay, it's horrible maybe right now. It doesn't mean it's going to be horrible forever. Maybe if you focus in the next 2 months, maybe this 20 is going to turn at 25, the 26. Slow improvement, you know. So I feel that self-awareness is really important for people to realize when they're using the fixed mindset. There's a challenge present themselves, like that situation that I mentioned. Steve told me, would you like to go? You have 6 weeks to figure this out. Yes or no. So in a fixed mindset, that's you're gonna say like, dude, there's no way. It's too close. I won't be able to do that. And I'm like, yeah. And then you start procrastinating. It's like, the next time, you know? And I feel that this is going to be crucial. It's going to be the mindset. It's going to determine, if you're going to crack or you're going to step up when you need to. And that's the difference between even and high level entrepreneurs, high level athletes, just with anybody. The mindset is basically everything.
I can see that and agree with you. And so my question would be, what are 2 tools that you would give somebody to help them get out of that fixed mindset? Like 2 action items.
The one thing that it's super important, it's understand the concept of emotional intelligence. So there are 5 pillars of the emotional intelligence, and the first 2, I feel that there's the two most important one. And the first one is self-awareness. You need to be aware of what's going on in your mind. And one of the question that I like to ask for everyone who's listening, just take a moment to think. Do you think about what you think about? Think about that. So stop to think about, hey, wait a minute, do I really think what's going through my mind? Because sometimes we don't. We're just busy and we're just moving on. So when you take a break, so like, okay, let me stop and see what's going on in my head. Now you're starting to develop your self-awareness to see of what's going through. And when you stop to think about it, you realize that, man, we have a lot more negative thoughts than we imagine, and psychologists say that you have 50 to 60,000 thoughts per day, and 70 to 80% of them are negative. And we don't stop to realize how often not only we criticize and judge others, but mainly our own selves. Like, are you good enough? What makes you think that you can accomplish that? Who are you to do this and to do that? So that voice I like to call the dark passenger. Maybe people who enjoy Dexter, the show Dexter, maybe understand what I'm saying. But it's the negative voice that lives in your head that brings all the negativities, the doubts, the insecurities, that they will not disappear. Fact, it's like your roommate. It's going to be your roomie for life. It's going to be always there, and it doesn't disappear, but you learn how to become more conscious of it. And how we do that, the first step is self-awareness. Realize that when the negative wave is coming, next thing, like, oh, wow, yeah, dude, I'm tripping. And now self-awareness is super important, but without the self-regulation, the second pillar, it doesn't do any good. Because you can say like, okay, wow, yeah, I'm being super negative. Yeah, I can see it. I'm not going to do anything about it though, but I can see it. So that means, yeah, you have a high level of self-awareness you can maybe recognize, but the self-regulation is low because you're not doing anything about it. You see it, but you're not doing it. So just work in conjunction with the self-awareness and the self-regulation. So you consistently challenge it yourself. In jiu-jitsu, it's an incredible tool to develop that. because when you look into question your thing, I was writing a content yesterday about fear of disappointing others, right? So next thing, people go to term depression themselves too much and like, man, I don't want to disappoint others and all that kind of stuff. And then when you need to stop to be, okay, let's stop to think about what to think about. And okay, I don't want to disappoint others, da 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 da. And then when you go to self-regulate this, you got to question this thought and challenge this thought saying, do you have control of the expectations that others may have of you? Do you have any control of the opinions of what others gonna say? So you have to focus on things you can control. So this is one way to just kind of like challenge that thought, and then you want to reframe that like, no, I'm good, and then reframe to a positive thing. So it's just this three steps. I like to call the three rational R's, which is basically the first R is the root of the problem. And that's what the self-awareness is going to help you to locate, or like, wait a minute, like, oh, okay. And then the second is to reevaluate, which is the self-regulation. Now that you identify, like, man, I need to question this. I need to reevaluate this. And the third one is to reframe whatever it was, maybe say like, oh man, I'm an awful guard player. And then you can reframe it to like, maybe I'm awful guard player right now, but I can get better and I will get better. What's the plan? What do I need to do to improve my guard? So I feel that the kind of like the three rational R's of like recognizing, being aware, and then reevaluate. You need to self-manage your thoughts and feelings, and then you reframe. And I use that I do my best to use that in many different things in my life. And that's the main, Caleb, when I look into the message of the BJJ Mental Coach, that is one of the tools that I use jiu-jitsu as a tool, but say like, guys, this is just the jiu-jitsu is just a small part. You can use this tool in jiu-jitsu training, competition, and then be like, okay, when you start getting good at identifying those patterns that are holding you back in jiu-jitsu, imagine what it can do with the patterns that are holding you back in your personal professional life. So the jiu-jitsu is just prepares you to talk about this area. So self-awareness, self-regulation, and reframing the thought. So it'd be like the three things.
That is profound information. And I think that definitely rings true with people's lives on and off the mat. And you've done an excellent job of taking your martial arts journey and the challenges that you faced in your life and converting those into, lessons and strategies for others with, the BJJ Mental Coach, the podcast, the Instagram lives, publishing the book, doing public speaking. You're trying to share what you've learned with the world. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today and coming on to share some of those experiences and give your perspective for people to find their own way. Is there anything you'd like to finish with?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you guys to check out jujitsutribe.org. So as I mentioned, I co-founded this organization 10 years ago. We did a lot of stuff like buying mats, buying gis, tournament registrations. We've been doing this for a long time. And then at the beginning, at the end of 2018, beginning of 19, we decided to not only rebrand the organization, but reevaluate the mission. Because it's nice to pay, it helps, and it's great to pay for tournament registrations and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if they cannot keep up the place, they won't have any money. They won't even train jiu-jitsu, or possibly they won't compete. So now we're working on the foundation of the place. So we're not working on as many projects, basically one at a time. And we do fundraisers, and then we help the place with like construction, improving the facility, helping because a lot of those guys, those teachers, it's incredible. They live to serve people. These are people that have no money, and how they struggle to just like to make it happen. I had the opportunity to travel and go visit some of the projects, and I have goosebumps just to think about it, because some of the things that I've seen, it's very hard. So we've been doing this, just helping. There's a project in and you can get more information at Jiu-Jitsu Tribe too. A project in the south of Brazil. This guy has 2 kids and adopted 16 of his own, actually 18 now, you know. So uh he started with just a little in his backyard. He put some not mats, but he just built something like a canvas just so people could practice. And then the thing started evolving. And this guy, it's incredible person. He's doing such an amazing job. And we're able to help him with a salary to, because sometimes they ran out of, they shut off water or power because they don't have money to pay, and they're like with like 20 kids in a house, so we've been working on that, supporting like the basic foundation. There's food, there's water and electricity is paid, and then money to maintain. So they're like there were our first project that we start going towards this route. And then there's the current one that we're working in Bahia in Salvador. And this guy's been teaching on the street for like, I think maybe about 7 years now. It's like literally on the street. So there's some videos about that. And I'm teaching, I remember teaching a class from 5:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. and with multiple kids on the street. But I'm talking like, I'm teaching here, right here, there's a bus driving by. There's a picture of me training. There's a risk of you getting swept and then getting hit by a bus or something. You know what I mean? The thing is like really close. And I'm like, dude, if anyone here lose control of their car, that would be a massive disaster of a lot of people. A lot of kids could die there. So our campaign now is we're going to build a place for them. So I've been going there. I went there last year twice to see them, to help with the program. It's incredible, the life-changing things that they've been doing. So if people want to learn more about it and even support the project, we're finishing phase 1, which is the goal is to raise $18,000. I think we're close to 15 now. So we're getting like really close. And if you want to hear more about the stories and incredible stories of saving lives, and that's something that I just feel my life just gravitating towards, that social work, that it's so the mission of inspiring, impact, and improve, in different areas of our lives. So I want to make sure that, everyone that it's listening to everything that I said, and by any mean, at any point, I'm trying to maybe like, oh, look at me, I have a bunch of stuff, I do this and I do that, it's just to convey to you that when you have your purpose, already figured out, and there's nothing wrong if you don't have, but when you know the purpose, and you want to accept challenges to keep pursuing this purpose, man, incredible things going to happen. And most importantly, you will be able to help a lot of people along the way. And I think there's no better feeling than that, make an impact, and knowing that, man, you're supporting a kid that could easily be hooked up with a cartel or something, and you're able to make an impact. So I just feel that this is getting stronger and stronger every year with me. And I'm just glad to use a lot of the things with the BJJ Mental Coach knowledge that I got, sometimes through seminars and fundraisers and different things, that can use that knowledge to help projects and help changing lives. So that's my mission.
Well, your purpose is very evident, and the passion you have for it shows through, which I think indicates where your heart is. And it's very inspiring to hear the stories and to see it all come to a culmination of what you've accomplished with your life. And I think people are going to be able to take those examples and see the bigger picture, and focus on some people out there that are giving everything they have for others. Definitely will be, getting people to take a look at the jujitsutribe.org, so they can kind of see that there's activism in the world out there happening to help those that are trying to help others. So I really appreciate it. And I hope that you make it through this thing and we're back to normal soon. Really value the time today, and I really appreciate everything you had to say.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for not just thinking, but at the same time and congratulating people. We got like, that's one thing that I like to say, congratulating for men. You could be just hanging out and maybe sometimes watching some nonsense stuff in YouTube, but you're going after some knowledge, go on YouTube or podcasts, get information, things that can help in your journey. So props for everyone just sitting and going after knowledge with podcast video and everything, because there's so much free content out there. It can definitely help. I took advantage of free content for many, many years. And now I do my best to provide some free content as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed.
Awesome. We will. Thank you.
Thank you.